What's happening, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new Star Wars Outlaws video. And in today's video we're going to be going over an interview that Julian Garrity gave for the official Star Wars website, where he said that this is a survival story. This all comes from Ubisoft Forward, which gave us a brand new look at gameplay for Star Wars Outlaws, which included things like general gameplay, combat, navigating our way through the galaxy, and a lot more. The first piece of information Julian Garrity gave us was about our scaly or furry companion, Nix, in the game. He said that Nix is a bulletproof companion, so we don't have to worry about losing our little companion as we journey through the story of Star Wars Outlaws. StarWars.com did ask Julian about the minigames in Star Wars Outlaws. They said that the presentation starts with Vess playing the game within the game. Is that a minigame for players, and are there more to discover in Star Wars Outlaws? Julian said that it is a playable game, and one of the things they were passionate about is having a lot of distractions within the world to make it feel alive. Even being able to bet on Faithiers or play Saabac, like it looks like you can with Lando Calrissian. All of these things they felt constituted the scoundrel lifestyle. It was important for them to have a lot of different types of experiences for the player to discover. StarWars.com then asked about the slicing and lockpicking. They said that slicing has an element that looks very interactive. Julian simply said, "Did you see lockpicking?" Now, this is something I have mentioned in a previous video. I don't really understand how this works. They never went into detail about how you actually pick locks or slice computers. The person playing the game for the gameplay showcase made it look very easy, so it makes me wonder, is it actually really easy? Or is there a knack to it that once you master, you will be able to get into computers and locks and storage boxes, that sort of thing, very quickly? StarWars.com also pointed out that at one point Kay pulls a data spike from her hair. Julian responded saying that this was very much part of their philosophy, to have interactions that were really intriguing and very different in terms of gameplay, so that this game wasn't just a sneak-in and shoot-and traversal type of experience. There are lots of different flavors in Star Wars Outlaws for everybody to enjoy. Following pretty much straight on from this, StarWars.com said, if there's a player who loves a specific element, like piloting, could they choose to focus on that in their gameplay? Julian said for the full experience, what they wanted to do was create the scoundrel lifestyle, and that includes so many different facets. From piloting not only your ship, but also your speeder, to fisticuffs, to investigations. And every single session of gameplay is going to mix all of those things. But if you want to focus on maybe smuggling and contracts in space, that's something that you can do. But the real outlaw gameplay comes from when you look at it as a whole and you experience all of these things together. Kind of following on from that again, StarWars.com did say that we see Kay discover new opportunities during her adventures in space, and can that happen on the surface of planets as well? Julian said that these opportunities are also found on the surface of planets. It's a system that they've developed called the Living World System. It's there to keep the world dynamic and interesting no matter what you're doing. There's always going to be something happening, and you can even add to these things by picking up intel along your journey. So let's say you're in a cantina, you can lean against the bar and start eavesdropping in on conversations, and that may be the start of a quest that sends you across the galaxy. I really like this approach. I like how you can pick up quests organically and you don't have to go directly to a specific person to find out about a quest. You can just sort of be walking around the world and interacting with things that are in the world and pick up bits of intel to get you started on different missions or side quests. StarWars.com did then ask about famous landmarks in the Star Wars universe. They said if Kay and Nix take their time to journey across the galaxy to explore a planet like Tatooine, is it possible that they might come across some landmarks, something like a crate, dragon, skeleton, or other familiar Star Wars locations? Julian replied saying that that specific part of creating the game was a dream come true for them. They started from Mos Eisley and built out the city with lots of little details that are very much screen accurate to the movies. With the game taking place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, it's that perfect moment where they have such vivid recollection of what those things were. So in the game they are going to have the vast Dune Sea, the rocky canyons, and the labyrinth inside of those rocky canyons. But there are urban hubs like Mos Eisley, and of course players have the opportunity to sneak into Jabba's palace. One of the things that I really hope is in the game, and it might be a bit of an odd one, is I want to go and visit the Lars family homestead. I want to see where Luke Skywalker grew up on Tatooine, and also it would be quite cool if we could visit Ben Kenobi's old house where he was in A New Hope. StarWars.com then asked about Nix. They said, you've called Nix a co-protagonist, which they really like. He can act as a decoy or charge into battle, but they noticed he doesn't have his own health bar. Does that mean we don't have to worry about accidentally losing Nix along our way? And Julian said 100%. They decided very early on that they weren't going to hurt Nix. He's a bulletproof companion. StarWars.com then asked about ND5. They said that ND5 is another character who's already captured the hearts of Star Wars fans. What do you think it is about him that players have already fallen in love with? Julian said he thinks it's the visuals. They do a lot of the heavy lifting, the battle scars, the coat, the pose slightly folded in but still very tough. I think it's also about the voice and the attitude, and the fact that this isn't the type of droid that we've seen very often. This is a tough droid that's seen battle, that's seen war, and has a lot on his shoulders. That's very different and quite compelling. StarWars.com followed that up by saying he's a commando droid from the Clone Wars, and there are obviously nods to the original trilogy and more recent films as well. Was that a deliberate decision to pull from every era, or did they just naturally come together? Julian said it's a little bit of both, because looking at the slice of Star Wars era that they chose, and the archetype of the scoundrel, there are so many compelling characters. There are many compelling characters in terms of the criminal syndicates as well. So weaving these things together makes everything gel together. But it's important for us to not feature too many of them so that the galaxy doesn't feel small. It has to feel natural and like the right time and place to meet these incredibly famous characters throughout the franchise. StarWars.com then asked, most of our favourite scoundrels and outlaws in the Star Wars universe have hearts of gold. Would you say the same of Vess? Julian replied saying he's hesitating on answering because it's easy for him to say of course, but he's not sure. He said that he doesn't think during the game it's a question of her showing a lot of altruism. This is a survival story game. This is a getting out of trouble story. It's to be seen whether or not she has a heart of gold. It sounds quite interesting, and the fact that he said it's a Star Wars survival story game made me really hope and wish for a Star Wars survival game in the future. I think that would be incredibly cool. I don't know how they would do it, but it just got those ideas flowing around inside of my head. StarWars.com then said that she sounds like Han Solo at the beginning of A New Hope, worrying mainly about himself. What do you think sets Kay apart from other Star Wars protagonists that we've met over the years? Julian said, for us it's very important that she stood out. When we first meet Han Solo, he is the coolest character in the galaxy. Harrison Ford's interpretation is everything that you want a space cowboy to be. However, Vess is struggling to survive. She's messy, she's stumbling into trouble, and she's a long way from being perfect. She's not an incredible gunslinger when we find her. She's not a pilot. All of those things come to happen because she throws herself at problems. She goes into it. She's a little bit reckless, and that for Julian was super important because of the relatability of it. He said that we should have characters in video games and characters in books and movies that are absolutely not perfect, who live through their good qualities, and also their faults and their actions as well. StarWars.com's final question was, what do you think makes a Star Wars story feel like Star Wars? Do you think your answer now is different than when you first started working on the game? Julian replied saying that's a great question because you think you know Star Wars as a fan, but when you start working and collaborating with Lucasfilm games and really understanding what makes Star Wars tick, then you start seeing the layers and layers of hard work, really intelligent design, and the beautiful aesthetics that go into it. What makes a Star Wars story is all of those things combined. When he was much younger than he is today, what drew him to Star Wars were the locations, amazing, fairly familiar, but all with an alien twist. But now it's mostly the characters, the humanity and the relatability of those characters, and the simple yet emotionally endearing stories that they can tell. He thinks the characters are really underpinning of everything that is Star Wars. That's why they're really proud to bring Kay, Nix, and ND5 to life in this game. So that is everything from the interview with StarWars.com. When I first read that this was going to be a Star Wars survival story game, I got really excited because I absolutely love survival games. But then to hear that he was just talking about how Kay is not a perfect character right at the start of this game. She has to basically rely on her qualities to get her through the game, and she's struggling to survive and struggling to get by in the Star Wars universe. I was a little bit disappointed, but at the same time quite excited, because it sounds like it's going to be a really interesting story that develops over the course of the game. And I'm kind of glad we are going into the game with a character who isn't overpowered right at the start of the game. We are going to have to develop her through playing the game, experiencing the story, finding experts, learning new abilities, and that sort of thing. But that is it for today's video, so please do let me know down in the comment section below what you think about Star Wars Outlaws. Are you excited for it? Which are your favourite parts from the Ubisoft forward gameplay we got to see? And if you have enjoyed this video and found it helpful, make sure to smash a like on it to show support for Star Wars Outlaws on the channel. If you are new to the channel and you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful and informative, make sure to subscribe to be kept up to date with all future content. But other than that, we'll see you in the next video.